Now we come to the part we've all been waiting for. I just met Deb Downing just briefly this morning, although we've communicated a few times via the technology. Deb is a superwoman. After reading her bio, it's just like, and you didn't go to Merchant Marine School? You know, that's the only thing that's left. Just in brief, Deb Downing was born, raised, and educated in the Nittany Valley of central Pennsylvania, and she holds a BA from Penn State. She started her career in 1969 as a VISTA, Volunteer in Service to America, assigned to the Southern Kentucky Economic Opportunity Council. Since then, she has held several positions in both the private and the public sector. Deb moved to Virginia in 1975 and took a job with the Community Action Agency in Charlottesville as a community developer and staff trainer. In 1979, she became the first director of the local Battered Women's Program, where she stayed for 10 years. In 1987, she was named Woman of the Year by the Virginia Women's Forum. In 1989, she was hired by the Virginia Department of Social Services to direct their domestic violence program, which included administering grants to local shelters program and monitoring and evaluation, along with providing training and technical assistance. In 1992, she transferred to the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services, where she was responsible for completing study on domestic violence arrest policies in Virginia law enforcement agencies. Deb has been attending services at the Unitarian Universalist Community Church of Glen Allen, Virginia, since October 1997. She joined officially in April of 1998. We did the same thing. Not there, but Deb currently volunteers for the Virginia State Park Service. She lives in rural Louisa County, hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, in Virginia with her partner, 2 golden retrievers, and 2 orange tabby cats. She enjoys many outdoor activities, including hiking, gardening, and paddling her canoe. I'd like to introduce Deb Downing. Make room.
Thank you, Mike. And first of all, I'm so happy to be here in the sunny South. We've had a very challenging winter, and I guess you have too. But I do bring you greetings from Unitarian Universalist Community Church of Glen Allen. We are a little church, not as little as you, but we started out this way, and I was there. So I'm happy to be here and happy to talk about the color purple. So my first reading is from The Color Purple by Alice Walker. All my life, I never care what people thought about nothing. I did, I say, but deep in my heart, I care about God. What's he going to think? And come to find out, he don't think. Just sit up there glorying and being deaf, I reckon. But it ain't easy trying to do without God. Even if you know he ain't there, trying to do without him is a strain. I is a sinner, say Shug, 'cause I was born. I don't deny it, but once you find out what's out there waiting for us, what else can you be? Sinners have more good times, I say. You know what? She asked. 'Cause you ain't all the time worrying about God, I say. Nah, that ain't it, she say. Us worry about God a lot. But once us feel loved by God, us do the best us can to please him with what us like. You telling me God love you when you ain't never done nothing for him? I mean, not go to church, sing in the choir, feed the preacher and all that. But if God loved me, Celie, I don't have to do all that unless I want to. There's a lot of other things I can do that I expect God likes. Like what? I asked. Oh, she say, I can lay back and just admire stuff. Be happy, have a good time. Well, this sounds like blasphemy, sure enough. She say, Seely, tell the truth. Have you ever found God in church? I never did. I just found a bunch of folks hoping for him to show. Any God I ever felt in church, I brought in with me. And I think all the other folks did too. They come to church to share God, not to find God. Unquote. In preparation for this foray into the pulpit, I rented the film version of The Color Purple and, of course, wept in my popcorn the entire time I watched it. I also purchased a copy of the novel and reread it. And I had forgotten that it was organized as a series of letters from Seely to her sister Nettie. But I hadn't forgotten Shug, whose open heart and unconventional spirituality brings about the redemption of not only Seely, her soulmate, but of Albert, who is both Shug's lover and Seely's abusive husband. And in the end, Shug even wins back the heart of her estranged and judgmental father, a preacher man. So I sat down at my computer and took Miss Shug's advice. I looked inside of myself and waited for Miss Shug's God to manifest itself. Then I looked up, and outside my window, the sun had just set and lavender-hued clouds were scudding across the sky, begging for my attention. There it was, the color purple. Images, sounds, smells, and feelings drifted through me like those clouds. I was reminded of something I overheard my friend Rebecca say when she was discussing repainting our church sanctuary. She said, we'll have to use the color purple because so many of our members respond emotionally to that color. Well, I was certainly one of them. Why do we respond to the color purple? I figured Feng Shui masters might provide some insight. And here's what they had to say, and I'm quoting. In your Feng Shui color applications, the color purple should be used with moderation. It is a very strong, high vibration color, the color of connection to the spiritual realms or the seventh chakra. And my understanding of the seventh chakra is that wheel of energy over the crown of your head that, if activated, can keep one in present time. The purple light meditation that we'll do soon will start that wheel spinning above our heads. Quote again, Feng Shui wise, it is not recommended as a wall color, as purple is a very high vibration color, and the Feng Shui advice is to use it sparingly. The only places Feng Shui purple color can be used freely are a healing room or meditation space. And so I've been meditating on the color purple in my own life. Purple has had a very special place in my life since childhood. My love of this color started with my love of wild violets, which my grandmother cultivated. She had a huge backyard and a large space between her patio and grape arbor, which was dedicated to them. They were abundant enough that I could pick fistfuls of them. They were long-stemmed and the flowers juicy and fragrant. And she also had a purple lilac bush, purple hyacinths, purple hydrangeas, and huge old-fashioned purple irises. And I actually suspect that the love of purple could be genetic. My grandmother always smelled purple as well, from bathing for decades with Palmolive soap, which was scented with lavender. And as a youngster, I loved spending the night there so I could smell purple too. Another purple in the early part of my life were the vestments of our parish priest, worn during Lent and during other times when penance was the subject of the sermon during Mass. That deep, rich purple often comes to my mind during Holy Week, the week before Easter, when as a young Catholic girl, I contemplated the suffering of Jesus on the cross. During that same period in my life, I remember thinking that the bruises on my mother's face were the same color as the priest's vestments and the drapery over each of the stations of the cross. As a child, I prayed very earnestly to that suffering figure on the cross to make my dad stop hitting my mom. It's not surprising that as an adult, I found a career working to end domestic violence. But it's interesting that a purple ribbon is worn by advocates for battered women every October to bring the public's attention to this issue. Purple ribbons are also worn in November to raise public awareness of pancreatic cancer, an illness that took the life of a beloved family friend, Richard Rorty, the renowned philosopher known as the Great Gray Pragmatist. I turned 13 in 1960 and graduated from college in 1969. My life was influenced by the best rock and roll ever.
Yes.
And I saw Jimi Hendrix play Purple Haze at the Atlanta Pop Festival. Excuse me while I kiss the sky. It was the beginning of the modern women's movement, and I wore love beads, headbands, and walked around saying, far out. And my life in the 60s was also influenced by the Vietnam War.
The Purple Heart is an American military decoration, the oldest military decoration in the world, in present use, and the first American award made available to the common soldier. It was initially created, as the badge of military merit by one of the world's most famed and best-loved heroes, General George Washington. His keen appreciation of the importance of the common soldier in any campaign impelled him to recognize outstanding valor and merit by granting a commission or an advance in rank to deserving individuals. In the summer of 1782, he was ordered by the Continental Congress to cease doing so. There were no funds to pay the soldiers, much less the officers. Deprived of his usual means of reward, he must have searched for a substitute. Shortly after receiving the stop order from Congress, he wrote his memorable general orders of August 7th, 1782, which read in part as follows. Quote, "The general, ever desirous to cherish virtuous ambition in his soldiers, as well as foster and encourage every species of military merit, directs that whenever any singularly meritorious action is performed," say that 3 times fast, "the author of it shall be permitted to wear on his facings over his left breast the figure of a heart in purple cloth with a narrow lace or binding. Not only instances of unusual gallantry, but also of extraordinary fidelity and essential service in any way shall meet with the reward. The name and regiment of the person so certified are to be enrolled in a book of merit, which shall be kept in the orderly room." General Washington made this order permanent and retroactive to the earliest stages of that war. Washington ended his order with, quote, "The road to glory in a patriot army and in a free country is thus open to all." Per United States Army regulations as of today, the Purple Heart is awarded in the name of the President of the United States to any member of the armed forces of the United States who, while serving under competent authority in any capacity with one of the U.S. Armed Services after April 5th, 1917, has been either wounded or killed or has died after being wounded.
David John Eckenrode, age 22, Caucasian, male, born May 25th, 1946, second lieutenant, 1st Marine Corps, regular. Length of service, 1 year. His tour began on April 23rd, 1968. Casualty was on July 21st, 1968. In Quang Nam, South Vietnam, hostile ground casualty, other explosive device, body was recovered. Panel 51W, line 25, Vietnam War Memorial. David was a year ahead of me in high school. President of his senior class in 1964. He was redheaded and handsome, captain of the Bellefonte Red Raiders football team, and star of the senior class play. Despite all that, he was a really nice guy. He was the big brother of my friend Regina. His name is one of 58,195 engraved on a huge granite wall on the mall in Washington, D.C. He was the first person I knew well of my generation to receive the Purple Heart. Unfortunately, he was not the last. After college, I served as a VISTA volunteer and was a soldier in LBJ's War on Poverty. In Kentucky, I met my future husband, Jimmy, and after our tours of service as VISTA volunteers were up, we took our Volkswagen bus on the road to discover America. One of my very favorite spots, of course, was the Maroon Bells in central Colorado, those purple mountains out there. This was the first time I had done any extensive traveling, and I did experience America the Beautiful. And when I say that, I think of Purple Mountain's majesty. And if we had a pianist, I would have them play, yeah, America the Beautiful. I have to say that when I think of my homeland, I find Purple Mountain's majesty above the fruited plain a much more comforting image than the rocket's red glare and the bombs bursting in air. After a few years exploring America, we returned to my husband's home state of Louisiana when we spent our autumn evenings at Tiger Stadium rooting for the home team who were wearing purple and gold. After living a few years in the Mississippi Delta, I was ready to go home to the mountains, so UVA was chosen as Jimmy's doctorate school. We found a place west of town, so each day I could come home from work and watch the sun turn the ancient Blue Ridge into those Purple Mountains' majesty. But the purple image that stands out from my years in Charlottesville was the birth of my child. I gave birth naturally using not only the Lamaze method breathing, but the hospital-approved LaBoyer practice of low lighting for birthing. So my first glimpse of Austin, my son, was of the most brilliant, thanks to the black light, lavender umbilical cord and a magenta baby boy. Fast forward to 1987. I'm 40 years old, newly separated from my husband, voted Woman of the Year, and my 10-year-old son is playing Purple Rain by Prince over and over and over and over. Purple Rain, as I now understand, is supposed to be a metaphor for heaven. My life wasn't making sense anymore, so I decided to have an adventure and go in search of myself. I signed up for a Sierra Club expedition to Nepal to hike in the Himalayas, which I did. And there I discovered Tibetan Buddhism. It was a life-changing experience. And one of the Sherpas painted this little white Buddha on a purple panel for me. And I brought it to show you. And he did this so I would remember what I learned there. But here it is. Kind of raggedy. You know, it's been around. This experience did open me up spiritually. And less than 2 years later, in 1989, I joined the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship in State College, Pennsylvania. And while I was living in State College, a very wise woman turned me on to this poem by Jenny Joseph and Joanne is going to read Warning by Jenny Joseph.
When I am an old woman, I shall wear purple with a red hat, which doesn't go and doesn't suit me. And I shall spend my pension on brandy and summer gloves and satin sandals and say, we've no money for butter. I shall sit down on the pavement when I'm tired and gobble up samples in shops and press alarm bells and run my stick along the public railing and make up for the sobriety of my youth. I shall go out in my slippers in the rain and pick flowers in other people's gardens and learn to spit. You can wear terrible shirts and grow more fat and eat 3 pounds of sausages at a go, or only bread and pickles for a week, and hoard pens and pencils and beer mats and things in boxes. But now we must have clothes that keep us dry and pay our rent and not swear in the street and set a good example for the children. We must have friends for dinner and read the papers, but maybe I ought to practice a little now, so people who know me are not too shocked and surprised when suddenly I am old and start to wear purple.
Thank you. You all probably remember that this poem was the inspiration for the Red Hat Society. The Red Hat Society was a loosely organized association of women whose members donned purple frocks and scarlet millinery, socialized together and acted outrageously, somewhat like a Unitarian Universalist committee meeting, but with uniforms. Jenny Joseph's poem is a song of freedom and reminds us the weight of our daily routine and how important it is to put that burden down every once in a while. And I see by all the purple in here this morning that you may have heeded Jenny's warning. Thank you to those who got the memo. And but for the rest of you, if you want to practice a little now and start to wear purple, you can find a lovely ensemble at the local Goodwill for a song. In ancient times, purple was almost impossible to produce naturally. The earliest form of color-fast purple dye was produced by squeezing shellfish, and through an elaborate process yielded the dye called Tyrian purple. Since this was such an expensive process, the color purple was limited then to the wealthy and the powerful. The color purple has been associated with royalty since ancient times, where Roman emperors wore purple to symbolize the god Jupiter, and it was Cleopatra's favorite color. Lydia of the Bible in the book of Acts was a purple cloth merchant when she was converted by Paul. It wasn't until the early 1900s that the same chemical in shellfish dye was also discovered in the roots of reeds growing in India. This substance, called indigo, was used for centuries to produce rich blue shades, but chemists of the early 1900s derived a purple that was easy to mass produce. So I invited you all to wear purple to this service. First of all, I thought it would be kind of cool. In my home church, I wanted to see if Lewis Walker would wear his favorite purple sweater, even though his wife, Christine, told him he looked raggedy. I wanted to see my friend Charlene adored in 10,000 Villages styles, because she actually has a purple wardrobe that would probably robe our entire choir. I wanted to see if crazy Sarah Mackey would make her forelock purple, because it always came in a different color. I wanted to see Dee Kaiser, our pianist, wearing the beautiful scarf that she'd been knitting for a year. And I wanted to see you all right here in New Smyrna wearing the color used by all the people on the planet seeking spiritual fulfillment. It is said that if you surround yourself with purple, you will have peace of mind. And that, my friends, is what I want for you. So I have one more message from Miss Shug. Here's the thing, says Shug, the thing I believe. God is inside you and inside everybody else. You come into the world with God, but only them that search for it inside find it. And sometimes it just manifests itself even if you're not looking or don't know what you're looking for. It, I asked. Yeah, it. God ain't a he or a she, but it. But what do it look like, I asked. Don't look like nothing, she said. It ain't a picture show. It ain't something you can look at apart from anything else, including yourself. I believe God is everything, Seisho. Everything that is or ever was or ever will be. And when you can feel that and be happy to feel that, you've found it. She said, one day when I was sitting quiet and feeling like a motherless child, which I was, it come to me, that feeling of being a part of everything, not separate at all. I knew that if I cut a tree, my arm would bleed. And I laughed and I cried and I ran all around the house. I knew just what it was. In fact, when it happened, you can't miss it. It's sort of like, you know what, she said, grinning and rubbing my high up on my thigh. Shook, I say. Oh, she said, God love all them feelings. That's some of the best stuff God did. And when you know God loves them, you enjoy them a lot more. You can just relax, go with everything that's going, and praise God by liking what you like. God don't think it dirty, I said. No, she said, God made it. Listen, God love everything you love and a mess of stuff you don't. But more than anything else, God love admiration. You say God vain? I asked. No, she said, not vain. Just wanting to share a good thing. I think it pisses God off if you walk by the color purple in a field somewhere and don't notice it. What'd it do when it pissed off? I asked. Oh, it makes something else. People think pleasing God is all God care about, but any fool living in the world can see it always trying to please us back. Yeah, I said. Yeah, she said. It always making little surprises and springing them on us when us least expect. You mean it want to be loved just like the Bible say? Yes, Celie, she said. Everything want to be loved. Amen and blessed be.